Okay, let's reflect on this trip. So I've been contemplating for quite a while getting back to the US, but I was very overwhelmed with the process. And the process includes not just getting a COVID test, but the hoops you have to jump through to schedule it. For example, I needed to first get a prescription from a doctor for the COVID test. Hard to get an appointment. You got to get that prescription. Once you get it, you have to contact an authorized laboratory or hospital, schedule an appointment. They have a whole process, forms to fill out. Then you've got to provide that prescription and schedule an appointment, show up, get that swab test, wait for a period of time, and make sure that your travel is coordinated with the test result, because you need, in most cases, as in my case, I needed to have a negative test result with the swab taken within 72 hours of the departure time of the plane. And you can't usually schedule the COVID test unless you have a ticket. In a lot of countries where I was, you needed to have proof of travel in order to get that COVID test. So a lot of moving parts, and I was kind of overwhelmed by it. So I kept putting it off. And also things kept changing. So finally I decided to go for it. Once I got past that initial complicated part, getting the prescription, scheduling the COVID test, which I couldn't do until after I booked a ticket. And I wondered if the timing would be possible, but it turns out that it was. Ended up getting the test a day before I needed it, because if your flight departs more than 72 hours from the date you had the swab, not the date of the result, the day you actually had the swab, then you'd have to reschedule the trip and all that. So also what was great, so the airline tickets were refundable and changeable with no penalties. Car rental, refundable, changeable, no penalties. Hotel, super cheap, like a third of what I used to pay. So it's like prices seem very low, very reasonable. Service is great. It just seems like everybody in hospitality is, pretty happy to see people and to have customers, including on the plane. You had kind of the most senior experienced crew working. I'm sure a lot of less experienced people, unfortunately, have been laid off. Maybe not all, but many. So you have kind of the most experienced crew members, and everyone just seems really happy to be working and happy to have customers. And it was crazy on the flight from, on two legs the flight. So from one country to the next country, about a 5-hour flight. I was the only one in the business class cabin that I was in. Like literally no one else in the entire part of the plane. I saw no other people other than flight attendants that entire trip, which was pretty unprecedented. And then the next leg from Korea to the US, there were definitely more people in the cabin. It wasn't empty. It was probably half full. But the other thing to take note of is the fact that they were blocking seats, so you really had your seat plus if there's someone seated next to you, depending on the seating configuration, that seat was blocked. So you were basically sitting by yourself with privacy and room. So yeah, overall, the whole process has been pretty smooth and amazing. And I would say this is the time to travel, especially if you've had a vaccine and you feel like your risk is relatively low of contracting this darn virus that's been messing everything up for the last year. Great time to travel. If you haven't had it yet, I don't know, might be better to wait a little bit. But in any case, if there's somewhere you're really wanting to go, you've got to do some research. What I found to be the best source of information is the airlines themselves. So for example, on Delta, when you book that flight, they have a very nice link that interfaces the requirements round trip both ways, wherever you're going and also wherever you're coming back to. So you can see what the requirements are with links, and they make it really pretty simple. It wasn't that big a deal. There's stuff to do, which traveling's always been a bit complicated as is. So when you add a lot of other uncertainties to it, it's kind of intimidating, the process. But once you actually do it, it's really pretty smooth. So yeah, I would say great prices, great service, smooth, efficient, the more pleasant experience because of the fact that it's just not crowded and you have more space and room and all that. And you don't have to worry about, like a transit hotel in the airport. I had like a 9-hour layover, it turned out. And I was, first thing I asked, I was desperate to have a bed to sleep in and not just sit in the airport for 9 hours. So, because I did leave on a red eye and I was pretty tired. And I caught myself asking a really stupid question when I walked up to the transit hotel, which is, do you have any reservations? And like literally, I think I might have been the only person there. Maybe there was one other person there. So like everybody seems like they've got reservations available. So yeah, anyway, bottom line, great opportunity to travel, especially internationally, if you're going to the right place and you do the research and you feel safe about where you're going. They've got COVID under control. They've got accessible testing there, which is important, because to come back you're going to need to have a COVID test most likely, and if you have a chance to have a vaccine first, that just is one more reason to go now while traveling is at an all-time low. And I'm sure it won't be like this for long, because once things improve a bit more, there's probably going to be a massive surge of travel, people going everywhere on cruises, on planes. It's going to be probably madness. And so at that point, I imagine prices will start to jump. Things will be pretty busy and booked. The only challenge with flying right now is there aren't as many flights, so it's harder to get to where you want to go efficiently. You can find good flights. With mine, I had red eye, which I usually don't like to do, and I had a very long connecting flight, which I usually don't like. But with a transit hotel, not so bad to get a bit of sleep, 5-6 hours sleep in between flights, and so that definitely made it very manageable. But depending on where you're going, you may not have long layovers connecting flights or red eyes, but I definitely noticed there were fewer airlines going to fewer places. And so what that's going to mean, as more people start traveling, they'll probably get booked up pretty quick. And of course, the travel industry needs to recover their massive losses. And so to recover their massive losses, they won't just be throwing lots of empty planes out there and cruise ships. They're probably going to want to consolidate, fill up those planes, fill up those ships, and try to be as cost effective as possible to ensure profitability. Because the planes I flew on, I'm pretty sure they weren't making any money on those flights. They're flying just to have their name out there and be providing a service and continue an operation, but I'm sure they were losing money based on how few people were on the flights I was on. So I can't imagine that being profitable, in the hotels as well. So definitely notice fewer staff. When I went to the rental car place, there was like one person working in each rental car company. So if you go to Alamo or Budget or Hertz or all the different choices, Enterprise, Sixth, there was like literally one person in each business, whereas normally they'd have like 10 people working there or 20 people working there, or at least 4 or 5. There was literally like one person in each rental car outfit. So everything's really downsized, but the people there seem like they're just happy to be there. Walked up to the rental car agency and they were, car was ready, 3 people standing there down in the kind of the parking area where you get the car. They had more people down there, I guess maintenance and service and whatever else, security. But they were like prepped and everything was just ready to go. So anyway, travel's great. I was pretty concerned about it, and now I'm just glad I did it, and I highly recommend it. And I would do it again, and I encourage you to do the same. If you can do it safely, go for it. Thanks for joining. More soon.